Welcome to UOWD On-Air. My name is Professor Payyazhi Jayashree and I am the moderator for the day. I have with me two very accomplished experts in the area of AI and education. On my right is Stewart Monk. He's Senior Vice President and General Manager International at Power School. Welcome, Stewart.
Thank you, Professor.
Stewart Monk is a Senior Vice President and General Manager International at Power School, the leading provider of cloud-based software for K-12 education in North America. Stewart has extensive experience in education technology industry and is responsible for driving international strategy across all Power School products. In his role, Stewart leads the Global Power Partner Program and collaborates with international channel partners to empower administrators, educators, and families worldwide with modern, secure, and AI-driven personalized education solutions. So that's quite a profile there, and I'm really excited to hear more about what you think or how you think AI is revolutionizing education.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Much appreciated.
Thank you. And of course, we have our very own Dr. Zeenath Reza Khan. She has been with the university since 2001 and is currently associate professor within the computer science school. Dr. Zeenath is the founding president and board member of the ENAI-WG Center for Academic Integrity in the UAE. And she is also very much within the academic integrity and ethics and AI space, and was recently elected board member for European Network for Academic Integrity. Welcome, Zeenath, and it is such a pleasure always to have you.
Thank you so much, Professor. The honor is all mine.
Thank you. So let me begin. My first question is to you, Steve. How is AI changing the way we teach and learn? Specifically, how is it being used in the education sector today, the AI tools that are currently being used in schools and universities?
So if we take a little step back and look at the broader picture, through COVID, we have best-in-class 4 months of loss of learning to a year and a half, depending on where you are in the world and depending on your situation. You've then got, according to UNESCO, by 2030, we need another 44 million teachers in the world. And there are two reasons why teachers don't stay. One is money, but two is the sheer amount of administrative work that takes you away from the things that you love. And then you consider your own experience at school. Whether you were the smartest child in the room or the one that was struggling, training was one size fits all. Yeah. So the idea that technology can support that loss of learning, support teachers to do a better job, remove some of that administrative work, and then accelerate this idea of personalized learning, self-paced for each and every student in the world, is really a pivotal moment for educators worldwide. So that's the importance of why we're having this discussion, as it centers on AI.
That's such an important area, and I'll probably cotton on to that introductory remarks and ask you, Dr. Khan, in what ways do you think AI can enhance the learning experience for students while ensuring it remains inclusive and accessible? AI, in many ways, I think the general commentary or narrative is that it has democratized, or it has the potential to democratize education. So what are your thoughts on inclusivity and accessibility of AI in education?
Absolutely. Thank you, Professor. And I think I echo what Steve just said, that in fact, AI does have that power to make quality education accessible and inclusive. We have seen, and this again, I think we need to also take a step back in terms of the technology itself, because AI is not something new. Yeah. It's actually been around. That's right. We've just started talking about it since 2023, Jan 6th, because Microsoft decided to invest on OpenAI's ChatGPT, and everyone's like, oh, AI. But we've been having AI in our classrooms for a while now. If you just think about the simple learning analytics that we use in our classrooms, any kind of learning management system now gives us that opportunity to look at the engagement of our students in our classrooms. How much are they really engaged? Who is not engaged engaging, right? How much time are they spending in my folder of the subject? What are they really focusing on? Are they just downloading? Are they actually engaging in the discussion that I've set up?
That's
Are
right.
they taking a quiz? So I'm able to actually look at that analytics. And this is something that's been accessible to us, all of us, for a long time now. And it's these tools that really help us to gauge who needs my attention more and who needs what kind of attention. If I see a student only downloading slides and that's all they're doing in my website, I can go back and talk to them and say, why aren't you looking at the discussion? What's happening there? Maybe, for all I know, language could be a barrier for that student. Maybe they're an international student. Maybe English isn't their first language. And maybe that's the reason they're just staying away from the discussion board. So a lot of the learning tools that we already have at hand are able to give us that access to understand our students better, how they learn better, so that we can make our education, whatever I'm doing in the classroom, more inclusive and more accessible.
That's a really important point as to how do we utilize AI to ensure that students are continuing to make progress and students are continuing to learn in a deeper manner. So let me ask you, Stewart, what are some of the key benefits and potential drawbacks of integrating AI into education?
Let's start with the considerations around drawbacks first, and some of the either misunderstanding or maybe fear that, and I think bias is one consideration. So, for example, a lot of open AI, when you put in roles or jobs potential, homemaker versus a surgeon, guess which pronouns that skews to, right? So you've got a concerns around bias. The other one is transparency. How does the AI deliver the results through which algorithms?
Right.
So you need to be transparent in terms of where those data sources are coming from.
Yeah.
So, for example, a student, we have data which understands their attendance, which understands even the length of their bus journey into school, which understands their grades, their scores, it understands their interests, and we've got that opportunity to personalize. So that's a benefit. The other one is security.
Yeah.
It may surprise you to know that the education sector is the number one ransomware attacked industry, not banking, in the world. So anything which relates to students' personal information needs to be held secure.
Right. Yes.
And then you look at some of the benefits. For educators in particular, the biggest construct of time is around lesson planning, curriculum design, and then testing. And you can automate all of those in a way that actually enhances the ability for open questions. And then I could go to parents, the concerns around your child's well-being and health. We can even report on the food that a child is eating in school. Yeah? So it is a mixed bag that needs to be thought through responsibly. And for providers like ourselves, that is a huge focus, responsible AI.
Zeenath, responsible AI. Now, that's an area of your research as well. What are the key ethical considerations should we keep in mind as AI becomes more integrated into education?
So I think Stewart's covered quite a few of the major ones where it's bias or transparency, security, and privacy. Going beyond that, if we look into our classrooms itself, I think equity becomes a huge issue because accessibility in terms of whether it's a paid service, unpaid service, can somebody does a student have the ability to upgrade to a faster, better, stronger model in the background versus a student who cannot. So I think we have to be really careful when we are thinking of using tools in our classrooms for our admin tasks versus tools that we want to use to enhance students' learning experience itself, where the student is going to engage with a particular tool. If I take the example of, let's say, any kind of generative AI tool, it's a fantastic cognitive offloading tool. Right? And we know that because we have content matter expertise. So for me, if I'm using a Gen AI, it's going to really speed up my process of work. But I don't necessarily know that that's what's going to happen when a student uses it. And I, as a faculty, need to then be aware how much my student really understands the tool. So then it becomes my responsibility to ensure, irrespective of knowing that they're 100% using it, talking about it in classroom and putting up those guardrails and telling them how they can and cannot use it, how they should and should not use it. So that becomes then my responsibility when I want to use an AI tool for my students to use.
So if academics are, those academics who are listening into this podcast, what advice would both of you give to prepare for this AI-driven space or ecosystem that we're all essentially inhabiting now and moving into at a very fast pace? What would be your advice? How do they prepare themselves? Not only academics, but also students at an institutional level. What kind of investments that we should be making in order to support this whole, constructive way of engagement with AI to support students as well as academics?
I think as a city and a country, we are very lucky to be where we are because UAE is so progressive with in everything AI. And with the latest, the Dubai blueprint for AI, that the universal blueprint that came out, the announcement that Sheikh Hamdan made about supporting teachers in use, we want to encourage you, we want to appreciate you. And those are two things that needs to happen side by side, the training and the appreciation. So that in itself is a message for us that institutions, schools, universities need to invest in training faculty. Let's not just assume they know, because a lot of people don't know. They are afraid to use maybe because the institutions or schools are not talking about it. Through the center, we did a training for teachers last year. We had about 85 teachers registered to attend. When we started talking about generative AI, how they can start using it in their classroom, about 30 minutes in, we started having teachers, like they suddenly just started talking among themselves. So naturally the facilitators stopped talking and we said, what's happening? Share with us, what's your concern? And one of them said, our school doesn't even talk about this and they have blocked it for students. And that's a huge message for us that we shouldn't even be using it. We're like, okay. They're like, so then we don't know why we are here getting training for this, if I'm not going to be using it in my classroom. So institutions, managements need to also be vocal about what their position really is about AI.
I would echo. I mean, most change management programs begin with an understanding. We did a survey through one of our schools here, ESOL Group. 60% of teachers want to adopt AI. So the edict that actually all teachers go through some sort of AI preparedness training is a really important first step. And I would echo, Dubai in this region is arguably the most progressive. When I explain to my colleagues in America that I don't show a passport when I come through here, right? We have schools leveraging facial recognition as part of the attendance card and actually texting back parents on choices of food, etc. in there. So we are in the epicenter, I think, of an area where you can show leadership. And I think that first step of educating people on what is your responsibility, but also what is the chance. And from a technical perspective, I would say this: you need to move everything to the cloud. Because systems, and we talk to a lot of organizations that are still running many, many disparate systems on premise where they're not secure and you can't really interrogate or leverage that data. Provided you're doing it responsibly, that is a huge opportunity for education here.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So clearly at an institutional level, there is a responsibility and from what I'm hearing, at a governmental level, from what you said, the kind of positive progress that we are seeing here, that definitely sends a strong message to institutions as well. And that kind of flows down to the academics and to the students and the entire ecosystem. So it is really a multi-stakeholder approach that we should be taking to ensure that AI integrates into education in a responsible and ethical manner. So when we look at, as educators, we often believe that educators have a very strong role to assess students, to ensure that even that assessment process is inclusive, fair, transparent, as you rightly said. How do you think AI can complement human judgment in student evaluations without replacing the critical role of teachers or academics?
I think this touches on a couple of topics that I know the folk in this room are very passionate about, right? In terms of assessment or equality, open opportunity, diversity, there is a huge part to be played. And I'll give you an example of that. we work with the country of Uruguay. And Uruguay implemented, I think it's 10 plus years ago, an open learning platform based on our technology, which reaches 800,000 students and 50,000 academics. That's 90% of the population. The learning tool is more popular amongst teenagers than Instagram on usage there, right? And the number one societal change these guys were looking to do was English language, because the English language opens up more opportunity. So we've got regions within Middle East which are making a shift from, we talked earlier about manufacturing oil-based to technology services-based. We still have within the United Kingdom, where I'm based, less than 14% of female graduates adopting STEM careers. I think there's a huge opportunity from an assessment view of leading people to be open-minded about career choices and academic learning that they may not ever have thought of in there. So I'll stop now because we get excited, but...
It's a very, very important area. I mean, we will move into gender equity in a little bit. Zeenath, what do you have to say to that? Do you think AI can complement human judgment in student evaluations?
I think that word complement is very important in that sentence. It can complement human judgment. It cannot replace.
Right.
And we are not at a level where general AI has been achieved, where AI will show human level intelligence that it can replace. So at the moment, it is a complementary relationship. And that's what we need to acknowledge first. There is a fear factor that, is it going to just completely replace me? It cannot, right? Because the judgment that I'm going to show in my classroom, I have 30 different students at the same time with many different emotional, relational things happening in the classroom that I will understand, that I will be able to then go beyond what I have normally done maybe for 20 years to take a decision. So if the algorithm didn't have that example for 20 years in the past, it might not be able to make that same decision that I will, right? So acknowledging that, yes, I have a tool that can help me rather than replace me. So taking that fear out first. And I will again echo what Stewart said about the lack of total number of teachers that is required in the world.
Yeah.
It's not possible to have that many teachers. We know that. Same thing in IT sector. We've been saying there's a deficit of programmers. There's a deficit of computer science graduates. We can try to cover that. But again, we still need to then look at how do we enhance the capability of those we already have. So if we can minimize admin tasks, if we can equalize the ground for more teachers, we have enough teachers who can give their time and their knowledge to teach a lot of students out there. So definitely the word complement is what I would focus on.
And I think, Doctor, a lot of the concerns is that AI is somehow just going to hand the answers.
Yeah.
And responsible AI should coach. It's like being a manager at work, right? If you just tell people what to do, they're not going to learn. So I think there are some legitimate questions around how in practice does this enhance the education experience.
Again, going back to the training part. So people who are training us need to have enough understanding, and then they need to start training the rest of us on how this is going to be the complementary relationship.
Plus, adding to that, there is always individual agency. I think each one of us have our own ways of engaging with teaching and learning. We have our learning styles. Students have their learning styles. And to once we I think in change management we often say there is awareness, and training is important, but the desire, between awareness and knowledge giving, there is that very important element of desire. And desire happens when people truly understand the why rather than the what and the how. It's a missing link, right?
Yes.
You say that, hey, this is very important, let's send everybody for training. But before doing that, can we create an environment where everybody understands why is it required? What is in it for me? So replacing that fear with excitement for learning something new. Again, human emotion, right?
Yeah, and if you think about the basics of it, I may be really excited about space adventure. Well, if I could learn the theory of... I'm not an academic. The theory of anything through the lens of a space adventure, it taps into that desire and passion. So, and the other one I would point to is we operate in environments where the reading and learning ability of parents to help support students is oftentimes less than the ability of the child itself.
Self.
Think about what you open up to the potential where instead of taking away the phone actually becomes the conduit for personalized learning. Correct. Through there. And that, that goes back again to, we keep talking about equality through there.
Yes. And you talked about women in tech and the importance of, ensuring that we are meeting the SDG 5 priorities of gender equity. What does your research say? Do you see, because for example, UAE, you talked about, in the US perhaps there is not an equal split, but when we look at UAE, within the Arab Middle East, UAE is really at the top when it comes to achieving SDG 5 priorities, and particularly in the area of tertiary. We have an equal split in our classrooms. If you walk into our universities, I'm sure you'll find in engineering and computer science classes and analytics classes, we find an equal split, which is fantastic, right? Which now if organizations are getting transformed by technology, there is digital disruption, clearly we want more women to also be occupying those spaces. So what would be your thoughts on that? How would you make sure that there are as many women? I mean, there is always this leaking pipeline, but there is also a pipeline that is built right from the ground up, which is what you're arguing for, right? So your thoughts.
So I'm a part of this network called the Women in AI in UAE. And it's such an impressive group of women. Either they're academics or they're startups or they're professionals. And the way the women have created this network among each other to support each other. And we constantly see more women being added almost every day, right? So I think definitely there is a community out there that recognizes we need more women voices in this space, and we need to be creating these safe spaces for women to feel comfortable enough to come and ask questions and not feel that fear that they're being judged. So that in itself is a very crucial thing that's happening right now in the UAE itself. From the academic perspective, we need to encourage more girls. It's happening, but it's still not happening at the rate we'd love to see. We still make up only about 30% of the global workforce, and that's because there is still a stigma around girls, reaching out or, being promoted to look at STEM as a possible career in the future. So unfortunately, we still don't have the huge push we want to see in the K-12s with girls. They're smart, they're doing it, they're fine. And there's enough psychological studies to prove there is no difference between a boy and a girl doing maths or sciences. But somehow, some reason, as they're going up in the grades, they are losing interest or they're just dropping out of STEM and taking different tracks.
I'm going to speak from personal experience. I'm very proud that our head of engineering, Shivani Stumpf, educated in Saudi Arabia, Indian by descent, head of engineering in there. However, the majority of tech companies, when I look at our graduate intake around engineering, is skewed towards men.
Yes.
I then say, where are you recruiting from? And it's computer engineering degrees. And then I say, what are you hiring for? And the main attribute is analytical thinking. So at the last place where I worked, I said, okay, we broaden the scope to maths, to other areas of academia, which displays that attribute. And then you based your hiring on attribute hiring rather than necessarily the specific qualification. And guess what? My tried experience through 30 years in this business is tech is not a natural destination for most teenagers other than maybe programming for video games.
Right.
And there is, again, an opportunity in tech, and we do assessment technology whereby you talk about your interests in life, you talk about what excites you, and it can lead you to paths that you wouldn't necessarily think about and guide you. And, it'll even show you what are the average salaries, where are the vacancies in the world. And let's face it, most of us in Dubai are not from Dubai. We've been led here through other choices in there. And that's where I get excited about the impact that we can make. And absolutely, women, we need to do a much better job in terms of making careers within STEM both available in terms of the potential that you can have here.
Absolutely.
Excellent. My last question. What advancements in AI do you foresee having the biggest impact on education? I'll start with you, Stewart, and then to you, Zeenath.
I think the biggest opportunity I think back to some of the societal change that we're working at country level for organizations. And it comes down to every child having the opportunity to learn at their own pace that is personalized to them, that understands their passions, their interests, their weaknesses, where they need support. And then you extend that support element through to parents, through to academics, and the administrative arm of education as well, that we've got the best mix of teachers through to the best students in there. And that's where I think AI can play, provided it's responsibly deployed, a huge part.
I think particularly Gen AI has a huge potential in really expanding what we do in our classrooms, how fast we do it, and how quickly students are able to accept it. But again, as Stewart has said, responsibly.
Yeah.
So, for instance, a lot of the training that we do in and around Gen AI for students or teachers, one of the first things somebody invariably is going to talk about is Terminator or iRobots or one of these Hollywood mega movies, right? And so we need to understand what really drives people's perception of AI in society. It's not us. It's not the tech world. It is Hollywood and it's science fiction. Right? So if we understand the romance we've done with AI for so long, beyond the technology itself, comes from the 1700s. The first machine that was described was 1726 in Gulliver's Travel, the engine, right? So we've been talking about smartness in technology for a while now.
Yeah,
so if we understand that and we accept that this is how people see and this is how people perceive the technology to be, then we can start looking at how do we build that into a more positive experience and positive outlook for students and teachers. Because till we do that, there's always going to be a pushback. Even if we have laws and policies saying you're going to start using Gen AI, there's still going to be a pushback because people are not sure how positive or truly advantageous that tool is going to be in the classroom. It has huge potential because we've seen from personal experience how much it increases productivity if we know how to use it right. So we can definitely increase our productivity in our classrooms, whether it's ours or students, but with proper guardrails so that we can ensure academic integrity is constantly upheld.
What I'm hearing is using resistance as a resource to find out, what exactly is creating this kind of fear and then supporting it through the right kind of...
You make it, you made me think there because I can't remember, have I ever seen a Hollywood movie that has actually portrayed AI in a positive light?
Exactly.
Right?
It's always doomsday.
So again, I think the messaging out there, which is so important, which influences and shapes mindsets. Yeah. So navigating ethics in AI-driven education. Any last thoughts, Stewart?
I think the opportunity is to think about constantly responsible AI. Is it human in its approach? Does it remove bias? Is it secure? Is it transparent? Provided, I think it goes back to the earlier question on education around the use of responsible AI, the potential. If we get those right, we're on the right track.
Absolutely. Excellent. And I think it's very important that we educated people about the drawbacks and the opportunities, not focusing only on one or the other, because they do go hand in hand. Because we touched upon women, for instance, a lot of the algorithm out there is heavily biased against women.
Yeah.
Stewart
that's a whole new podcast.
Yes.
Yes.
Just a small example that I've done in my class, just to show increase awareness among students. If you go to Google Translate, my language, I speak Bangla. Bangla is a very gender neutral subject language. So the table is not a he and the chair is not a she, example. So I wrote, if I write in Bengali that, she is a doctor and he is a nurse, and then translate that this is what it is. When I translate that back into English, automatically it becomes he is a doctor and she is a nurse. Because somewhere in the algorithm, somebody, when they were coding, that bias that doctors are always men and nurses are always women has come through.
Right.
So understanding that is very, very crucial. So it's understanding that, then making sure I know how to overcome that, so that the tool is still very positive and, is going to be an opportunity for me.
I think both of you have obviously broken through ceilings to be where you are. It's very hard in life to look at leadership in any form or careers in any form, and when you don't recognize yourself because of language,
Right.
because of the way pronouns or even attributes around leadership, for example, which tend to skew to the masculine, it's very hard for you as a child to think about yourself in those roles. That's what, to me, I think that's a huge area of change or opportunity for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That was a really, really interesting and insightful conversation. And Stewart, Zeenath, I think you've provided some really great directions for all of us to think about and work on. Clearly, from what I'm hearing, a multi-stakeholder approach is required. Responsible use of AI, educating ourselves, transforming the learning spaces into becoming truly inclusive through the responsible and ethical use of AI, right? Thank you so much for your time
Thank you for
today.
the opportunity.
I
Thank
really
you. It's been
appreciate-
amazing. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the opportunity.
Thank you very much.